Also coming up tonight, opposition National Democratic Congress bent on fishing out its members of parliament who broke party ranks to approve new ministerial nominees.
And later we bring you the shocking revelations on drug addiction among medical professionals.
Later on Mission, we throw the spotlight on female junior high school students who are back in school after giving birth and taking advantage of Education Services re-entry policy.
On the international front, NATO condemns what it terms Russia's dangerous and irresponsible rhetoric about after Vladimir Putin's decision to station tactical nuclear weapons in Belarus.
We are live around the world on 3news.com. That's our website, by the way, and also streaming on Facebook. So do get interactive with us. We'll be happy to know what you think about the many stories we have for you tonight.
The details this evening: U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris is in Ghana as part of a three-nation African tour to deepen relations on the continent. She's expected to engage Ghana on issues relating to climate change, economy and trade, as well as youth empowerment through entrepreneurship. My colleague Judith Awachitando was at the Kotoka International Airport and she reports.
Everything about the preparations for the arrival of Kamala Harris was symbolic. It had history written all over it because it is the first time a U.S. vice president is stepping foot on African soil. Kamala arrived to a crowd of waving flags. Government officials and school children were excited to see this. And of course, the rich Ghanaian cultural display would usher in the U.S. VIP who begins her three-nation Africa tour today. She would also be in Tanzania and Zambia before the end of her tour. She hopes to, through this visit, strengthen partnership with Ghana with focus on these key areas.
I look forward to my meetings with President Akufo-Addo, President Samia, and President Hichilema. We will build on the previous meetings I have had with each of them to strengthen democracy and good governance, promote peace and security, build on long-term economic growth, and strengthen our business ties. I also look forward, during this visit, to meet with entrepreneurs and artists and students and farmers, to witness firsthand the extraordinary innovation and creativity that is occurring on this continent and inspiring the world.
She also further expressed intentions by the U.S. to invest in Ghana's economy.
In particular on this trip, I intend to do work that is focused on increasing investments here on the continent and facilitating economic growth and opportunity, specifically in the areas of economic empowerment of women and girls, empowerment of youth entrepreneurship, digital inclusion, and to support the work that must be done to increase food security, including adaptation to the effects of the climate crisis.
But before she gets into all the engagements scheduled to begin on Monday, she would bask in the warm hospitality of a Ghanaian reception for a VVIP she is. For the next 3 days, the US VIP would attend a series of events, including a historic trip to Cape Coast, the city which embodies a lot of Ghana's past. She sure should try some of Ghana's cuisine. By the time she leaves, she would have well and truly experienced Ghana. Judith Awachitando, TV3 News.
A very historic visit indeed, and we will be bringing you all of it as it unfolds over the next couple of days. But joining us via Zoom is international relations expert Michael Nketia to discuss this a bit further. Mr. Nketia, good evening and thank you for joining us on News 360.
Good evening and thanks for having me on your program.
Well, a lot of people have described this visit as unexpected. Why do you think that Kamala Harris chose to visit Africa at this particular time?
First, the growing influence of China on the continent, on the African continent, has been a major U.S. foreign policy in the last decade. Beyond China, we've seen that in the last 2 years, Russia has been gaining grounds on the African continent, particularly in the West African sub-region. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, there were French troops in parts of Mali, in parts of Burkina Faso, and these French troops have been there for over 5 years, trying to shore up defenses of Malian and Burkinabe forces against the insurgency of jihadists and other armed groups and terrorist organizations. However, with the coming into force of military intervention in both countries, the military regimes in Burkina Faso and in Mali decided to end ties with the French government and the French presence in their respective countries, and have now formed a new alliance with private Russian military firm or contractors known as Wagner. And all these presents very varying threats to American interests on the West African sub-region and also on the African continent. So the twin threats of China and Russia on the African continent, and particularly in the West African sub-region, has become a major foreign policy for the Joe Biden administration. And if we would recall, during the era of former President Donald J. Trump, he had a lot of hostilities towards African countries. There were unofficial statements which were allegedly attributed to former President Trump, so-called calling African countries so-called shit countries, and I believe that shithole countries, and I believe that all these are innovations or interventions by the Biden administration to restore relations between the United States of America and other countries on the African continent. So this comes at a very, very critical moment, not just for the United States, but also for Ghana. If you would recall, our finance minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, is currently in China, trying to negotiate with the Chinese government to have a say on whatever financial package that Ghana is likely to receive from the International Monetary Fund. And we should also put on record that the International Monetary Fund is a creation of the American government, and it has been in existence for so many years. Now, although about 189 countries are members of the International Monetary Fund, the real power brokers, the decision makers, are very few countries. Of the 24 governing board countries or members of the International Monetary Fund, America and its allies have about 6 seats on that governing board. And that governing board of the International Monetary Fund is very critical on any form of financial package or agreement that Ghana is likely to receive from the IMF. We are talking about the United States of America. We are talking about the Great Britain, France, Germany, and Saudi Arabia. All these are very critical allies of the US. And I believe that Ghana should not just advocate for democratic ties, good governance, rule of law, as we heard the US Vice President Kamala Harris speaking about. We should also push the US to use its veto powers at the IMF and its broad alliances of other countries at the International Monetary Fund to help Ghana reach an agreement with the IMF. It is expected that by the end of March, it is predicted that by the end of March, if Ghana fails to reach an agreement with the International Monetary Fund, we are going to have very genuine crisis, balance of payments issues, and even our ability to meet payments of our debts to the international community. Right. And I believe this comes at a very opportune time for the Ghanaian government to leverage on this visit and use the U.S. influence to
I was going to come to that because you mentioned that it has come at a very critical time, not just for Ghana, but for Africa as a whole. How then can we leverage on this visit beyond the areas of cooperation and bilateral relations?
Well, I believe strongly that one critical assessment within the American international relations community and scholars is that one of their greatest regrets and mistakes is that they allowed China unrestricted access to the African continent. They kept complaining about China giving loans to dictators. America's form of financial package and support was limited to countries that were practicing democracy, the rule of law, countries with respect to human rights. But China was giving loans to almost every country on the African continent. And this has given China some form of unrestricted access and control of Africa. What Ghana and other African countries can leverage on based on this visit is simply telling the Americans, if you don't want us to deal with China, if you want to limit our engagements with China and Russia, then you have to step up the game. Give us the money that China is providing. Provide us with loans that comes with very less stringent ties and conditions like China does for us. And I believe that African countries should use the growing presence of China and Russia on the continent and how it threatens America's influence over the continent to be able to leverage the Americans for various forms of support, both in finance, in capacity building, and more in this 21st century. Every African country should be looking at climate diplomacy. Climate change has been a major...
Right. Grateful for your time this evening, Mr. Nketia. Michael Nketia is an international relations expert speaking to us about the U.S. President Kamala Harris's historic visit to Ghana and other African countries.
Certainly, we'll be bringing you more of her visit in Ghana, the U.S. Vice President, that is. Let's do politics now on News 360 because the opposition National Democratic Congress is facing an uphill task of convincing its rank and file that it is committed to keeping government on its toes after Friday's overwhelming vote to approve President Akufo-Addo's ministerial nominees. Some MPs have incurred the wrath of party members and Ghanaians over what has been described as betrayal of the party in the manner some MPs crossed carpet to approve the ministers. Cape Coast Member of Parliament Kweku Rickett-Hagan, Cape Coast South, that is, Kweku Rickett-Hagan has told TV3 that some NDC MPs were bribed to vote against the party's decision. In the last few hours, the party has been responding to this development. In a statement signed by the General Secretary, Fifi Kwete, it says the NDC condemns the conduct of its MPs, describing it as a betrayal of the will of the party and a massive stab in the back of the Ghanaian people. The party says despite the outcome of the vote, it remains committed to its call for President Akufo-Addo to downsize its bloated government amidst the economic crisis. The statement continues to say that the NDC as an entity bears no liability for the deviant action of the few self-seeking members of parliament who betrayed the collective cause of the party and the nation. So details of that statement from the NDC General Secretary is on our website, 3news.com. Away from that, they are mandated to administer care to patients in hospitals and other medical facilities. But health workers are having to themselves battle conditions that reduce their productivity and render them incapable of doing their job. One of them is drug abuse. In this report, Emmanuel Samani follows and explores the subject of drug addiction among some medical professionals.
When I take it, I get high. I start with one. It got to a time I had to take more, double up the dosage to get the same high I needed.
Monica was a shining star in the nursing profession. For over 20 years, she was the one midwife everyone looked up to. After the loss of her mother, she felt all alone.
I became addicted to Petidine. That was 3 years ago. But before then, I went through a lot of different things. I had my first surgery. And then the same year, I lost my mother.
Stigma and fear are preventing many healthcare workers from seeking help for addiction before it's too late for both themselves and their patients. Now, desperate to hide their illness, healthcare workers are suffering in silence, and the lives of those who they take care of are at risk.
Drug addiction is with us. It's in every aspect of our lives, particularly among health workers. It is not their fault that they are addicted. Addiction is a disease. Some health professionals come and then you realize that it is alcohol. Some come and it is cigarettes. They are health professionals, and once they find themselves in this space, we should be able to support them.
Like many health professionals, Monica's situation was getting increasingly bad.
It took me 1 year to decide that I was really addicted to Petidin, and even that, I realized I couldn't take care of myself. I had lost so much weight, and then on my birthday, I nearly hung myself in my room. And the only thing that changed the suicidal thoughts was the fact that I thought of my son lying in the next room. That's the only thing that made me seek help.
President of the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association, Perpetual Ofori, was deeply saddened by Monica's story.
So it's been there like forever. When I was in training in the 90s, we knew that there were doctors that were addicted to Petidin. There were nurses that were addicted to Petidin. And in quite recent times, we've lost a couple of nurses who, of course, were identified to be using them, but they go through some kind of rehab, they go back, they are taking it, and suicides and death that cannot be explained.
Doctors, nurses, and other healthcare workers are suspected of misusing and diverting high-risk medications from the in-hospital supply, leaving many hospitals ill-equipped to combat the problem. But how can one overcome such addictions? Harriet, a drug addict counselor, has been helping hundreds of addicts overcome their addiction. She explains why individuals get into the use of drugs in the first place.
For her, it was just a grieving process. For others, just stress from daily living, just the stress. Others also fun, just want to have fun, and so then it begins from there.
Monica has undergone rehabilitation for 4 months and has since been drug-free, and continues her nursing profession with a Catholic facility.
I think addiction is everywhere, in all sectors, everywhere addiction is there. But you see, because of the stigmatization, people are not ready to come out and seek help. Not only that, by the time you become addicted, you don't have money to even fend for yourself, let alone say, okay, now I'm ready, I need this help. Where do you get the money to pay for the rehabilitation? That is the problem.
It is our duty to open the conversation and provide support to those who are suffering in silence. We must break the stigma associated with addiction and work to provide the help and compassion that all individuals deserve. Emmanuel Samani, TV3 News, Pantang, Accra.
Definitely, let's break the stigma associated with addiction. Now, the Setre Kumeu district in Ashanti region is grappling with students' furniture deficit of over 3,000. The number, according to the Education Directorate, keeps increasing following the low investment in basic education. In this report, Ibrahim Abubakar looks at how the inadequacy of school desks is impacting on education in the area.
From a distance, the Wonodia Primary and JHS seems to have no problem. The school has one of the best buildings out of the 41 basic schools in the Setre Kumeu district. But a walk into the classrooms paints a gloomy picture. In most classes, at least half of the pupils have no desk. 4 persons share a desk meant for 2.
We need more desks to accommodate the increasing enrollment. When you come first, then you will get a seat. Those who will come late, they will not get seats. And then it leads to fight among the students.
The situation is no different at the Akrofosu Basic School. School authorities complain Those without desk are compelled to sit on the floor during examination.
Because of the inadequacy, you have 3 people and 4 people sitting on the dual desks, which does not help very well. It's a very challenge. Sometimes when the peoples are writing, it does not help and makes teaching and learning very difficult. Therefore, we plead to governments and the NGOs to come to our aid and come and help us.
It is a requirement in Ghana's 1992 Constitution for all persons to have equal educational opportunities and facilities. But the right of these children is being curtailed. Samuel Ade Ajekum is the district chief executive for Setre Kumewu.
The demands keeps on coming. We as District Assembly, we have done the calculations with the Education Directorate, and we have to supply over 5,000 dual and mono desk to the various schools. We have 41 schools. The District Assembly, per the records that I have, we've done close to 1,805. So you could see the deficit. When even the common fund comes, there's pressure on health. Health is drawing it, medication, especially on fiscal infrastructure, and then sanitation, and together with the IGF that we even generate, can't even resolve the challenge.
There are about 2.3 million children in Ghana's public basic schools who lack desk, according to education think tank African Education Watch. For Ghana to achieve the Sustainable Development Goal 4, government may want to look at investing more in basic school education for all to have access to quality teaching and learning. So the issue of inadequate desk is widespread in most basic schools here, and some education think tanks are proposing a policy of ensuring no school infrastructure is awarded to contract without a component of furniture. This, in a way, they believe may reduce the desk deficit. But until then, the challenge will linger on, especially with the increase in enrollment. Ibrahim Abubakar, TV3 News, Setre Kumewu District, Ashanti Region.
Ghanaian-owned startup Floodgates Limited's digital solution, Trustair, has won the award for the best democracy-affirming startup in Africa. The announcement was made on March 7 during the Africa Tech for Democracy Venture Day held at the University of Cape Coast, a competition for startups that develop technologies to strengthen democratic principles. Judith Awachitando has more in the following report on the importance of Trustair to Ghana's development.
Ever been a victim of fraud, scams, or hacking? Ever wondered how you can be sure you're not speaking with a fraud during an online transaction? It might be a simple clothing shop on Instagram, or maybe a call demanding your bank details. However it presents itself, it's a sign of danger. The danger of identity fraud. It's everywhere, and it can affect anyone. But how can this be prevented? And are there ways to really verify the real identity of anyone you relate with online? Well, let's find answers.
Identity fraud is one of the world's oldest crimes. Though innovation and technology has helped in fighting it greatly, it has in the same vein made it an even more sophisticated crime to detect when now perpetrated. That is why technology across the globe that seeks to fight identity theft is well received. And one of such technologies developed here in Ghana is getting global attention. The app Trustair, created by Floodgate Technology, has just won the best democracy-affirming technology in Africa. Oswald Wedam Anonadaga is founder of Floodgates. For him, Trustair is a dream turned reality.
Trustair is a digital identity management solution, first of all. So it manages who you are and verifies that you are who you say you are. And you know that one of the biggest challenges that we have in this country is identity fraud, account takeovers with businesses, people hacking into other people's mobile money accounts, or just convincing them to give them their passwords or guessing passwords and all of that. What we are sought to do is to create a security system that allows you to verify yourself anywhere you are in the world.
The app is designed with a number of features that makes it a go-to app by companies, government, and the ordinary Ghanaian. Interestingly, Truster is not limited to identity fraud.
For services like bank services, insurance, business services, healthcare services, you can actually sit at the comfort of your home or wherever you are, even if you are not in the country. First of all, you need to verify your identity so that we know who you are. You verify your identity card details, verify your phone numbers, emails, and all of this information that the businesses require. Once you are verified on the service, you can then access any service that you want.
But they are not where they want to be as an indigenous company.
The major challenge we are facing here, Floodgates, is funding. So doing a startup and not getting enough support from people, governments, and other institutions, it makes it very difficult to run the whole company. So we've been speaking a lot to some of these government institutions, and would plead that they open their doors to us so that we can share our technology to them, share our ideas. Because there are a lot of things that the IT company can do to change the country in a whole.
Floodgates currently serves over 2,000 clients across 14 countries in Ghana, Europe, and Asia. It will also be competing in the Global Tech for Democracy contest in a few days. In the meantime, it intends to expand its territory beyond the 3 continents. Judith Awachitando, TV3 News.
One of the best secondary schools in Ghana, Achimota School, has marked its 96th Founders Day. President of the Old Achimotans Association, Professor Ernest Aite, has called on government to grant autonomy to the school.
The old students of the school were back to celebrate their founders. A cadet drill preceded a Durbar. Headmaster of the Achimota School, Ebenezer Graham Aqua, requested urgent assistance to address the school's infrastructural challenges.
Our most important challenge is infrastructure. Classrooms, dormitories, our dining hall is small, and these are the things we are looking out for. So when we get to those things, then I wouldn't say we wouldn't have any more challenge. There are little ones that all schools are experiencing, and so that is it.
The Old Achimotan Association has been instrumental in addressing some of the school's pressing needs. Former Vice-Chancellor of the University of Ghana, Professor Ernest Aite, who is also the president of the Old Achimota Association, proposed to government to grant the school autonomy.
We have used education as a weapon for fighting political and ideological battles instead of as an instrument for transformation. The government can provide some level of autonomy to the school that will give greater authority to the school board in mobilizing resources for the school, including from parents and the private sector, and managing its academic programs and assets. There are several other schools that could benefit from such an initiative, and that is why the OAA has led the creation of an alumni council that brings together the leadership of about 40 schools to fight for such recognition for their schools.
The Old Achimotan Association also called for stringent measures to prevent further encroachment of the school's lands.
TV3 5 months ago shared the story of a young boy who was presumed to be suffering from a mental disorder, but for the timely intervention of a mental health nurse, his abilities as a special child with higher IQ was identified. Today, little Jonathan is having a new lease of life, having been offered full scholarship to study at the Pre-Birth Montessori School. My colleague Sarah Pencroff followed the story through and now reports.
3-year-old Jonathan Wallason now has a new home. Learners, facilitators and management of the Pre-Birth Montessori School, where he would continue his education have already given him a warm welcome.
Happy to see you, happy to meet you. Welcome, welcome, how do you do?
And his story is about to change from of 3-year-old Jonathan Wallason caught the attention of the public. He skipped lessons at crèche to attend higher classes, read books, and pronounce words he had never been taught. A behavior his teachers at the Avetile Methodist Basic School thought was weird and abnormal.
What is this?
Wait.
What is this?
That is.
What is this?
A screen.
Wow. What is this?
Everyone.
Jonathan Wallason, after undergoing assessment at the Department of Psychiatry at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital, was diagnosed of ADHD, a clinical condition characterized by symptoms of inattention and or hyperactivity and or impulsivity in children.
He's neurodivergent. What it means is his brain is different. That's what makes him function differently. He is not abnormal. But people who are neurodivergent, we're talking about ADHD, autism spectrum, and other conditions, they have certain strengths and weaknesses. So for Jonathan specifically, we noticed that his expressive language skills is quite above average. That's why he's able to read quite fast than a 3-year-old. But then we also realized from the neuropsychological assessment that he has poor comprehensive skills. So which means the thing he's reading, he may not fully understand what he's reading. That is what he will need help with.
Jonathan would require a well-structured educational system away from the village to enable him explore his potentials. And at Pribet Montessori School, Jonathan can get all the facilities to develop. The school has decided to award the clever little boy a scholarship package. CEO Cecilia Hughes Osafo is excited by Jonathan's new journey.
I was watching TV3 and I was really touched because I'm into education. So when I saw it, it dawned on me that the parents were saying they needed to come to relocate to Accra. And we also felt that this is a Montessori school. So why don't we seize the opportunity and extend that same facility for this little boy? And I discussed with the management and they all agreed that it would be a very good idea to help Jonathan.
The school, which runs a preschool to JHS level curriculum, offers high standard tuition. Jonathan would not enjoy his new lease of life alone. His older sister, 5-year-old Lillian, is also a beneficiary of the scholarship package, expected to commence next academic term.
We are much grateful, and God should bless and keep the institution as well as you, Mama. Thank you very much.
The two had earlier been enrolled on PEBICAPS, a comprehensive specialized digitized library platform by owners of the organization. A lot has changed since December last year, and the coming years for Jonathan and his elder sister look promising already. They now have a fresh lease of life.
He's excited about his new school, and we hope he gets the needed impact he requires. Sarah Apenkro, TV3 News, Accra.
Indeed, media or TV3, I should say, does get results. The Presbyterian Church of Ghana has commenced a year-long set of activities to mark its 195 years of mission in Ghana. The church says it is committed to prioritizing reviving its school across the country.
Since its establishment in Ghana in 1828, the Presbyterian Church has spiritually impacted several lives while engaging in the country's development discourse. The establishment of schools across the country has also been one of the church's achievements. The Ebenezer Presby Hall in Osu was the church's first branch. The
The church now has an excess of 5,000 congregations with more than 1.7 million members nationwide.
We stand that the word of God, scripture, what Jesus teaches us is the right way to go. What we see in the world is nothing to write home about. So it shouldn't attract them. You see, the world packages those things and gives to them, and then they are attracted and they go. But the foundation still stands. Jesus Christ is the sure rock, and on whom, when we build, we have a future.
Dr. Zanato Ajiman Rollins is the MP for Korle Klottey.
It's really been great news knowing that the church is taking active steps to actually renovate some of the schools in the area, because sometimes there's been a little bit of a difficulty trying to organize the rehabilitation of that from the GES point of view. And so I'm really happy that the church has actually finally made the commitment that these schools are going to be renovated.
Chairman of the Anniversary Planning Committee, Nick Papo Brown, outlined activities marking the year-long celebration.
Today we have launched our anniversary, and we've lined up a whole lot of activities for the whole year. By April 16th, we'll be having a church music and spirituality, that is hymns and their meanings. After that, we'll be having celebrations with our various generational groups. We have planned to have crusades, evangelism around the town, Usu.
2 public lectures will also be held to unravel the history behind the establishment of the Presbyterian Church.
You're still watching News 360 on TV3. Stay with us. We have Mission right after this.
Welcome back. This is Mission. Mission is supported by Star Ghana Foundation with thanks to FCDO. On Mission tonight, we are throwing the spotlight on the implementation of the re-entry policy by the Ghana Education Service. My colleague Stanley Nibler revisited Gundog Junior High School in the Nabdam district of the Upper East region and filed the following report about a female student who is back to school after delivery.
In November last year, when the mission team visited the Gundog Junior High School, some of the female students were pregnant. Previously, students who were impregnated had to quit school and eventually forced into marriage. This has been the situation in the school every year. 16-year-old Mary was heavily pregnant during my first visit and was in her 3rd trimester. For her, the desire to have a dignified life urged her on to be in school. It has been 5 months since my last visit, and I am back to follow up on Mary's situation. The teenage girl had delivered at the time of the visit. Teachers are implementing the Ghana Education Services re-entry policy, so they have allowed Mary to return to school. During break, Mary treks 3 kilometers to go and breastfeed her baby, who is being catered for by her mother, and treks back to school. The 6-kilometer journey, in and out, teachers complained, makes Mary to lose out on some classes, as she always returns late to class.
At first, it would have been difficult if a girl is pregnant. Immediately you hear that the girl is pregnant, you just more or less dismissal or outward dismissal, or you withdrawal. But with the new entry policy, it has actually helped, because when she was pregnant, we didn't withdraw her. She continued coming till she gave birth. Even the day she gave birth, it was on a Friday she came to school, and on a Sunday I heard that she had delivered. Now the child is still small, so the child is still breastfeeding. So the child is with the mother. So normally she goes home around second break for the child to breastfeed. Then she spends about 30 minutes and then comes back to school. The parents complained to me that the place is quite distant. So if we could help her with a bicycle.
I followed Mary home to appreciate her plight. Mary has satisfied a physiological process, and now she is back in school. Her 4-month-old baby boy is now being taken care of by her mother so that Mary can concentrate on her education. Mary's parents, her colleagues and teachers are happy to see her back in school. For Mary's mother, she thinks education is the key to everything, so her child should go back to school. For Mary, she will not give up on education.
I want to be a good person in the future. That's why I came back to school.
Mary's mother said she was surprised her daughter got pregnant.
My parents say, "Oh, school. Nyame ba ma no say, wanye kakra bia, wadia, oba mama." Me say me nia bere no kwa school no. Me say akora ya, school no wo gani school no kora. Mba yare.
She's, however, willing to continue taking care of the child so her daughter can further her education after passing the basic education certificate examination. Elizabeth Akolugu is the NABDAM Girls Child Education Coordinator.
With Mary's problem like this, I think social welfare promised to get a bicycle. But you know the money is not just sitting. So maybe they are also planning to see how best they can support her. But to me, I would even say cutting classes is better than just losing the whole education. Because if she's determined and she's a serious person, she can collect maybe notes from colleagues to make up.
NABDAM District Chief Executive Agnes Anamu admitted issues of teenage pregnancies are widespread in the district, but she said measures have been put in place to address them.
Teenage pregnancy and all those things you are talking, once a while they must come. You wouldn't stand to say no, you don't have them. Actually, my social welfare have been doing their best. They go out to educate the people in communities and have meetings, engagement, talking to them on the importance of a girl child in the school. I'm a DC, I'm a lady here. My coordinating director is a lady. My accountant is a lady. District director of education is a lady. District director of health is a lady in the district here in NABDAM. Why did I advocate for that? We did that to let them all know, because at first they were saying teenage pregnancy. So I made sure, advocated, I said I wanted these women. And they're the people heading all the institutions. Whenever we're moving, we put them, then we ask them. So it's there, but we are trying to. And we don't leave them. When we get you, we say they should just report, bring the person to social welfare. Then after that, if we can't handle it, we send it above.
Dr. Mark Kurt Nawani is the Member of Parliament for NABDAM.
You people followed it up. You people started it. It's good that the girls are back to school. The problem now is how to keep them in school. And we are around. If they have any problem and they, our attentions are drawn, I believe that we will go to their aid. And I also believe that the Assembly and then the Ghana Education Service in NABDAM should keep an eye on them and try to let them stay.
For Mary, now a single mother, an intervention that will help her to be in school is a necessity. Stanley Nibleu, TV3 News, NABDAM, Upper East.
Kudos to Mary and other young single mothers like her out there. It can only get better. That's it for Mission tonight. Mission is supported by Star Ghana Foundation with thanks to FCDO. We have some sports news coming up next.
Are on a mission promoting access to quality health and education through the power of our media space. Since 2014, we have made great impact. TV3 mission now drives Ghana's quest to break barriers and provide access to inclusive and quality girls' education. Together with women's maternal health services, our mission to address the needs of the socially excluded has won the admiration of many. Indeed, TV3 Mission gets you the results. Mission is live on TV3 News 360 every Saturday and Sunday. Supported by Star Ghana Foundation, with thanks to Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office.
It's time for sports here on News 360. I am Aniela Alote. We begin with the Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers, and the Black Stars have had their official training after landing in Angola for the second leg on Monday, 27th March 2023. However, head coach Chris Hughton is missing captain Andre Dede Ayew, Dennis Odoe, Mohamed Salisu and Alexander Jiku on account of injuries. Ghana leads Group E with 7 points and would need a win in the second leg to qualify for the tournament. Meanwhile, Angola shares second place with Central African Republic with 4 points.